Well, I'm being joined right now by Mr. Neil Atkinson, the former head of the Oil Industries and Markets Division at the International Energy Agency. Many thanks for speaking to Times Now, sir. Now, we're speaking at a time when President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum and has also threatened Iran, claiming that he'll wipe out the entire civilization. How do you view this comment and the kind of implications that this might have on global energy markets?
Well, President Trump's comments are, to say the least, extremely vivid. And remains to be seen what will actually happen when his deadline expires. I think that we've already seen today attacks on military facilities in Hog Island and in other parts of Iran by the United States and by Israel. But certainly, if there were to be the kind of bombing that is implied by President Trump's remarks, then that would be very, very serious indeed. But, we have to wait and see what happens after the deadline.
Now, President Trump appears to be quite insistent that Iran should open up the Straits of Hormuz, but Iran has simply not budged so far. What are the implications of this standoff if it continues and Iran simply refuses to bow down to what America has been demanding?
Well, if the situation remains as it has been since February the 28th, that is with very, very limited shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, then we are going to see an intensification of what's already become apparent in many countries, particularly in Asia, where they have not been receiving their normal level of supply of oil products and natural gas and fertilizers and other commodities which normally pass through the Strait of Hormuz. We've already seen prices rising quite sharply, and if there is not a change to the current situation in the Strait of Hormuz, then that will get a lot worse. And we are going to move closer and closer to what we would then be able to define as a global recession.
Well, since you mentioned Karg Island, now America has been quite persistent in attacking Karg Island, and it amounts to a large quantity of Iran's oil exports, energy exports as well. What kind of impact will this standoff have as far as the Karg Island is concerned and America's relentless targeting of that extremely strategic island as far as Iran's global supplies of energy are concerned?
Well, to all intents and purposes, Hog Island is Iran's only significant outlet for oil exports. And if, for the sake of argument, Iran were unable to export oil, it would obviously be shutting in its current levels of production, which, as far as the global market is concerned, reduces supply that's available to the market, not only in the immediate short term because of military action, but if the military action against Hog Island were to take it out, it would mean that if there is some degree of stability or peace restored in the region, that Iranian barrels would not be available to the market, which means that the market will be much tighter than it would otherwise have been, and therefore oil prices would be supported at much higher levels than would otherwise be the case. So removing Iran's production and export capacity from the global market, if that is what is actually going to happen, is going to, I would suggest, not be a good thing for the global security supply of oil.
Now, here's what Iran's counter strategy has been. It's attacked oil and natural gas installations of America's allies in its own neighborhood now in the rest of the Middle East. Do you think that might escalate as a result of what Trump might do?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by escalation, because if Iran is attacked tonight or on into Wednesday and Thursday in the way that President Trump implies, I'm not quite sure what would be the escalation that could happen, because if Iran's military capabilities degraded further, then it's very hard to see how Iran is going to be able to retaliate. Perhaps in the immediate moments of attacks by the US, Iran may be in the position to fire its own missiles, take its own action against Gulf neighbors and cause a lot of damage to them. But that's highly speculative. We have no way of knowing what Iran's capability might well be in the next 24 hours. After that, if the American attacks are successful from the American point of view, then presumably Iran will no longer be able to threaten its neighbors in the way that it has. Therefore, escalation is not really something that's very likely.
So, if you believe that an escalation is not likely, that Iran may not necessarily have the wherewithal to escalate by attacking its own neighbors in the Middle East, what happens in terms of its hold on the Straits of Hormuz? Does it have any option but to open it up?
Well, it's a question of, if the United States and President Trump actually mean what they have been saying in the last few days,
Hmm.
and if, for the sake of argument, the Americans really do attack Iran very, very hard in the coming hours, then, to all intents and purposes, Iran will have no ability to prevent traffic starting to resume through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's not a question, it wouldn't necessarily be a question of Iran allowing
Hmm.
shipping to resume. It's just that Iran may not be in a position to any longer stop it. So, we all have to wait and see what happens in the next hours.
Mr. Atkinson, you would, of course, be familiar with the reported 10-point proposal that several reports have claimed have come from Iran in order to negotiate some kind of a resolution to the ongoing conflict. And one of those demands includes levying a fee of $2 million on each vessel transiting through the Strait of Hormuz and using that revenue to essentially reconstruct Iran and repair the damage that's been inflicted on the country over the last 1 month or so. Do you believe that was a reasonable proposal that they made? And do you believe it ought to have been accepted?
It's very difficult to see how that proposal is likely to fly.
Hmm.
If I guess from the American point of view, if Iran has suffered damage during the conflict since February the 28th, then that's Iran's problem and Iran can fix it. And there is no reason why other countries or companies that might use the strait should pay for the privilege of repairing Iran's infrastructure. So it's very difficult to see how that will fly.
Absolutely. We'll have to, of course, wait and see as to whether or not those proposals cut any ice whatsoever with the United States. And clearly, going by the pronouncements of Donald Trump, that's clearly not the case. But Iran has also been talking about disrupting supply on the Bab el Mandeb Strait as well. Now, how serious a problem is that in the event that Iran's actually able to go ahead with its plans?
Well, it would be a very, very serious problem if it were actually to happen. So far during this conflict, we've been focusing on the Strait of Hormuz, and that's entirely understandable because there is, of course, huge restriction on normal activity. Saudi Arabia has been very successful in being able to divert a lot of oil that would have come through the Gulf and through the Strait of Hormuz. It's been able to divert that oil to the Red Sea. And so far, action taken by the Houthis against shipping, which we saw in previous years in the Red Sea, that action has not taken place. There are rumors, although there is no way of backing this up,
Hmm.
that Saudi Arabia has, to all intents and purposes, bought off the Houthis and essentially ensured that they don't affect shipping. But if, for the sake of argument, there were disruption to shipping in another choke point in addition to the Strait of Hormuz, then yes, that would have very, very serious implications in adding to the already constrained availability of oil that we have to the global market.
Well, since you talk about the other choke points and the kind of constraints that they might experience in the event that there is any kind of an adverse action on the part of Iran, well, India is one country that will definitely get affected because the Bab el Mandeb Strait is also a very important corridor as far as Indian exports to Europe are concerned. So, India is also looking at the situation very closely.
Oh, absolutely. India, let's be specific about India for obvious reasons. India is one of the countries which, from the very start of this conflict, has potentially been at great risk from huge disruption. When I was in India a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the possibility of shortages of LPG, which, as you know better than I, is widely used now for cooking. But of course, trade is not all about energy. And India is an exporter and an importer of many types of goods and products. And any waterway, any trade route into and out of India, which is blocked by military action or political pressure, is obviously going to be detrimental to India and, of course, to India's customers. Because, of course, if you're importing goods or materials from India, then you want to see them arrive. If you don't, that's bad for your trade and bad for your economy. So India, so far, I think, as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, India has been able to receive, I'm not going to say favorable treatment, but India has been able to receive supplies from time to time, as indeed have some other countries which have had direct diplomatic discussions with the regime in Tehran. So India, yes, India is still at risk economically, and that should not be underestimated. And, you know, we have to hope that the conflict does not spread to other choke points in addition to the damage we've already seen from the Strait of Hormuz.
Let's very quickly also talk about China. How are they holding up in this entire scenario as far as their energy security is concerned?
Well, China really does not have any energy security problems. I apologize. China is a major importer of oil from the Gulf region. There's no question of that. And indeed, China is Iran's only significant customer for oil these days. But the main point about China is that for some years now, the Chinese government has a major policy initiative towards energy security, has been building up enormous stockpiles of crude oil. The official number we don't know, but it's thought to be at least 1 billion barrels and could be as much as 1.5 billion barrels. So China is prepared, if you like, for a rainy day. But don't forget that China is also a major customer of Russia. It's been receiving enhanced volumes from Russia during the last few months. And India, India is in a different position to China, of course, because India doesn't have such large strategic stocks as China does. China is in a very strong position to wait out this crisis for probably very long time to come.
Well, let's also talk about Russian oil and its availability. President Trump had initially imposed additional penalties on India for purchasing Russian oil, and this was later, of course, waived off temporarily. We never stopped buying Russian oil despite American sanctions and American penalties. But how are you now looking at President Trump's approach towards the issue of Russian oil? And do you believe that waiver is likely to continue? Is he expected to take a step back and allow the purchase of Russian oil on the part of several other countries so that global oil prices at least stabilize?
Well, India's position vis-a-vis Russian oil has always been quite interesting. Before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, India bought very, very little oil from Russia. It was only 50,000 barrels a day in 2021, which is an almost insignificant volume. During 2022, as the Russia-Ukraine campaign intensified and as sanctions were placed on Russian oil, India very, very sharply increased its purchases from Russia. So by 2022, 2023, India went from 50,000 barrels a day to very nearly 2 million barrels a day of Russian imports. And the reason India did that is partly because the volumes of Russian oil were compatible for many of its refineries, but also, of course, the Russian oil was very, very cheap compared to international benchmarks. So India acted in its own national interest, which, of course, it's entitled to do. Now, of course, as you said in your question, sanctions were imposed. India has been given waivers. I think the attitude of the Trump administration to Russian exports, even if, for the sake of argument, the current war in the Middle East were to end very soon, because we don't know how serious is the damage that's been inflicted on oil and gas production infrastructure in the region, it may well be that the Trump administration, purely in the interest of keeping oil prices as low as possible, will continue to allow Russian exports to continue unimpeded to many important markets, including India. But what I think we may have seen from the news recently, we've all been focusing on the Middle East and Gulf, so we've not been looking so much at Russia and Ukraine. But Ukraine has recently had a great deal of success in bombing and in some means or other disrupting Russia's oil exports. So Russia's oil exports may not be able to ramp up or be maintained at the kind of levels that we've been used to recently. But yes, it's a very good point that you raise vis-a-vis Russia. But I believe that in the interest of keeping oil prices as low as possible, which is an important political imperative for the Trump administration, they are going to, I think, have a very permissive view towards the level of Russian oil exports.
For a very long time, and quite interestingly, given the kind of rhetoric that President Trump has indulged in, he spoke with a lot of smugness about the Straits of Hormuz, claiming that the United States doesn't really rely too much on it. He almost spoke about it like it was an expendable commodity. And then, of course, he was seeking to get a lot of other countries heavily reliant on the Straits of Hormuz to send their warships to the strait in order to safely escort their vessels to their respective countries from that extremely sensitive area. Now, is there any credibility to Donald Trump's argument that America does not really need the Straits of Hormuz to the same extent that some of the other countries do?
Well, the United States is not insulated from the Middle East Gulf and what goes on there. In 2025, the United States oil companies imported about 700,000 barrels a day of oil from the Gulf, all of it pretty well from Saudi Arabia and from Iraq. And Saudi Arabia has significant downstream oil investments in the United States. Now, the volume, 700,000 barrels a day, is not that enormous in the great scheme of things as far as the United States is concerned, and US companies could replace those Middle Eastern barrels with barrels from elsewhere. But the point is that we live in an international global oil market. Prices are set as a result of the interaction between global supply and global demand trends. And the United States is not insulated from that. The United States is not an energy island. It still imports very, very large volumes of crude oil, most of it from Canada. But as I said a moment ago, it also imports oil from the Middle East. It imports oil from Venezuela, from Mexico, from Brazil, and from various other countries. The United States is a fully integrated part of the global oil industry, and it cannot insulate itself from what goes on in the wider world. And President Trump may be right to suggest that other countries which have a greater reliance on supply from the Middle East Gulf that the US does, he has a right maybe to suggest that they step up to ensure that in the future there will be free flows of oil through the strait. But, you know, the United States itself is not immune from the impacts of events in the Middle Eastern Gulf.
Certainly not insulated. Final question to you, sir. Is it going to get a lot worse before it gets better in terms of global energy supplies and, of course, the price of oil?
Well, President Trump's rhetoric is, of course, becoming more and more vivid, but also we see gradually, and this has been going on for a few weeks now, an increase in the number or the size of US forces, which is either already in the Middle Eastern region or very close to it. So that would imply that the possibility of a worsening of the military situation is pretty imminent. But, you know, beyond that, we just do not know the fallout. What will be the ability of the Iranian economy and the Iranian government to fully function? Will Iran still be able to threaten its neighbors in the way that it's done for the last month? There's still an awful lot of uncertainty, but certainly the next 12, 24 hours are going to be extremely interesting indeed, if President Trump's rhetoric is matched by action.
Well, let's wait and see what happens. Mr. Atkinson, thank you so much for sparing your time and speaking to Times Now.